Hello and welcome to another video. So in this video I wanted to share with you some stories about my first couple of interviews to get a software developer job, and really just share with you how poorly they went and how bad I felt after them, and to let you know that it's not the end of the world, because you're probably going to have a tough interview as well, or two, and really it's not the end of the day. You just keep pushing and eventually it will happen for you. I think everybody has a bad day in interviews. I really do. Even if you're a couple years in, I've talked to developers who really bomb their interviews. So it's a completely normal thing. Though I think it's especially hard when you're maybe career switching, you don't have a degree in it, you're self-taught, right? There's a lot of reasons to start self-doubting and feel like you're an imposter and that you shouldn't be here. And as well, you could be asked questions that are beyond your capacity as well, that really throw you in deep water, especially if you start applying for jobs earlier on in your studies rather than later. Though I say apply for jobs whenever you feel ready. The market will tell you when you're ready, right? So yeah, let's get to the story here. So I started really studying the Odin project in January of 2022. It was a couple months before when I was doing the foundations, but I wrote my first line of JavaScript in January 2022. And I studied really hard every day, and about 6 months later, I started sending out my resume. I found a really cool template on LinkedIn, it got an image, and my wife was very kind. She just built in Canva, she basically built this resume template that looked really good. And I think it's important to show, a decent layout on your resume and show your information so it's easily read and easily picked out of a resume. So I screened in well, right, with this resume. I think it was good. Out of about 50 applications that I sent, I ended up with 7 or so interviews, which is a really good ratio. Though, as an aside to that, this was early 2022 or mid 2022, so the market wasn't quite as crazy as it is now. The tech sector wasn't going through the contractions yet. It was about to start, but it hadn't happened yet. There was still a lot of cheap debt. There was still a lot of companies kind of growing and hiring on debt. So there were a lot more jobs and a lot more hiring going on then as well. I think if I'd sent out 50 applications now, I'd be very lucky to get one interview. I think that's kind of how the things have changed a little bit. But yeah, so I got calls for 7 interviews. 4 of those, I got to the first stage, discussion with the recruiter. Even in these ones, the recruiters were actually asking some technical questions, which I didn't do that greatly on. And they were kind of like, yeah, nice to see you, thanks, but no thanks. I think one of the reasons I screened in on some of these is because I do have a pretty solid, I say, past career where I was managing a technical team in government. I have a master's degree from one of Canada's top universities. So, some, I guess, good checkpoints on there of someone who might be worth interviewing. Anyway, so let's fast forward to the ones that didn't go so well. And there were 2 in particular that stick out in my mind. And the first one was for a kind of health tech company based in San Francisco, but they were hiring through all of North America. And this was my first interview, the first time I'd sent out a resume and received a response saying, hey, we want to interview you. So for me, I was like, oh my God, it's happening. I've been studying so hard for 6-7 months, and finally I got my interview, and all I have to do is pass this and I've got my job. And I was just so stoked for it, but also quite nervous. And at this time, there was a lot riding on it for me mentally. So we were still in the throes of the pandemic, all the stress around that bullcrap. And then I also had placed a very high expectation on myself to get a job. For me, there was no failing. I knew inside my heart, whether I was reasonable or not, that I would make this transition happen and I would get a job. I wouldn't give myself an inch to fail. However, when you have that mentality, when you do fail, it's extra hard. And when you're placed in a position where you're starting to fail, it snowballs and your mind doesn't work for you, as I will explain. So I got this interview. The first stage with these guys, it was just with the senior developer there, and it was kind of a fit interview and me just learning a bit about them and them a bit about me, and that went well. I like talking to people. I'm good at talking to people. And for context, I've done a ton of public speaking. So I'm not shy in front of people. I actually enjoy the challenge of public speaking. It's something that, it gives you a little bit of adrenaline, and I enjoy that. So I'm no stranger to talking in front of people. But when I had my second interview with them, I completely shit the bed, basically. I was a bit of a nervous wreck, and I had placed far too much pressure on myself. And this being my first interview, right, I caved under that pressure that I'd put on myself. So the situation here was I'd been given a technical assessment, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but it's something about taking a nested data structure, so like a Ruby hash, which could then have nested hashes and arrays within it, and finding a certain key value or value within that. I can't remember what it was. A great candidate for recursion, by the way, but I didn't use recursion. But that's fine. That's an aside. I got to the point where I'd written this code and I'd spent hours and hours on it. They said spend maybe a couple hours, but I ended up spending I think 8 hours or something over 2 days. So right there, you say I was not quite ready for their technical level of technical requirements. So I'd written this code, and the next interview was for me to run through my code and kind of talk about my approach, why I chose what I did, what I would improve. And it was with two developers, the senior and another developer. So at the start of this interview, I was so nervous. Okay, I was like, my heart was pounding. I'm not like a panic attack kind of person, but I think I was on the verge of having a panic attack. I was just like, could feel that kind of tingling. I was like, oh my God, this is going nuts. And the guy comes up on the screen, and I start talking to him, but I was so nervous. I could feel like my stomach coming up into my throat. So I tried to buy some time. I was just like, oh, hello, can you hear me? And I knew damn well he could hear me and see me. But I was just saying, oh, I can't see you, I can't hear you. Hello, the connection must be bad. It's ridiculous now that I think about it. But I was just so nervous. So, it was a bad day from the start. And once I'd kind of just gotten over those nerves, I started talking through my code, and I was actually a lot more comfortable with that. But halfway through that interview, my internet connection died. Okay, the network icon showed me there was no internet. The Zoom screen went blank, and I was just dead in the water. And I couldn't believe it. Because I already had so many nerves, and it was already bad enough that my interview was just highly embarrassing. I couldn't believe that the internet died. I was just screaming. I couldn't believe it. My internet came back, luckily. I rejoined the call. They were still there, luckily. And I explained to them, oh, so sorry, my internet died. But, given how the interview started, they probably just thought I was full of it, right? Because, yeah, sure, whatever, your internet died. Nice one. But anyway, the interview went well. They were nice enough. They gave me some good feedback. They were kind, in being graceful and just not making me feel like an idiot. Okay, that was good. Needless to say, it was thanks but no thanks at that point. But you know what? After that, I learned a lot, and that was my first interview done. I didn't get the job, even though for some reason in my mind I thought I would in the beginning of the process. I didn't get the job, and that was okay. I was like, okay, well, on to the next one. And the next interview came was actually worse. I think it was even harder. It was with a Canadian company, and the first stage was a couple of small data structure and algorithms, kind of on a by yourself, kind of a take home where you do them in some code pen where they time you and you submit your solution. I did those, and that went well. And this was after a recruiter call. And then the third step was to do a live coding exercise, couple of exercises with 3 other devs. So I had to share my screen and start solving some problems live. And that was just absolutely awful for me. The problems were really simple. It was like determining whether a string was a palindrome, which in Ruby is, you could do in like 4 lines. It's extremely simple. But my mind went absolutely blank. I couldn't even remember how to write a loop. And there were periods there where there was silence for 30 seconds. I couldn't think, all I could just kept saying was, oh, I'm so sorry, my mind's blank. I couldn't even type anything. I couldn't even pseudocode, nothing. My mind just went completely blank. So I got into this state in my mind where it was just fight or flight. And I couldn't do either. I just froze. I guess that's the third order, really. It's like fight, flight, or freeze. And I just froze. And needless to say, that interview didn't go well. But again, they were very kind. I did solve the problems eventually when they gave me enough time, and I just I stumbled my way through it and I solved the problems. But it was just not. It was a poor showing, and I was really embarrassed, kind of, by how poor it was. But I get over these things pretty quickly. I'm just like, all right, it's done, whatever. I'll learn from this and on to the next. But they were very kind and gave me some really good feedback again on that. So needless to say, you can still have some bad interviews, but it doesn't mean you have to give up. You just keep going, you learn from them. And for someone, at least speaking for myself, I have very high expectations for myself. And even though I have a lot of experience doing public speaking, even though I'm not really that shy in front of people, coding in front of people, for some reason, I find very difficult. And I think it's because I feel like people are judging me. And if I don't know, or if I can't write code like some kid who's been doing it since age 12, for fun, and it's just like Mr. Robot, just typing away and it's flying across the screen, I feel like if I can't do that, then they're going to judge me and think that I'm an idiot, especially someone who's coming in from another career, especially someone who's self-taught. There's lots of reasons to feel like, why on earth should you become a software developer when you take this path? And really, there is no reason why you can't. To be honest, these are all just gremlins and demons in your head that start to play up. But there are ways to overcome this, I think. Definitely, if you're like that, you place a lot of pressure on yourself to the point where you might start freezing and experiencing that. You might feel embarrassed, shy, challenged to code in front of other people. The best thing you can do is code in front of other people. Whether it's in interviews, which taking interviews for the practice is not a bad approach, to be honest. Try and code with other people. Maybe you have some people in your network, other developers. Maybe there's other juniors that you can pair with. But just get that screen up and start coding live, knowing that other people can see your screen. And it will really help you overcome this ridiculous fear of coding live in front of other people. I had that fear. I don't know if other people have that fear the same way. Please let me know down in the comments whether or not you feel the same way. Right now, I feel a lot more comfortable. Though if I was asked to solve a fresh problem on a blank piece of canvas right now in front of other people, I'd still feel nervous, even though I know that I could figure out the answer if I was doing it by myself. So it's just something to overcome and be mindful of that. But yeah, you might flunk your first couple of interviews. It's fine. Keep going. If you have any good interview stories below, share them, because other people can read them and learn from them and know that messing up an interview is absolutely fine. It's no reason to stop. Just keep going and learn from it. Okay? So hopefully you had a little laugh at those and took away something that will help you in preparing for your interviews in the future. It is YouTube after all, so please like, subscribe, and comment. Oh yeah, and this little thing here is a fireplace. I'm just in the throes of installing a chimney system. That's my kind of false wall that's going to replace the window that slides there. And it's just a temporary fireplace in this small building that I built in my garden to see if I like having a fireplace in here, which I think I will. But I wanted to do it out the window before putting a big hole in the wall back there first. So maybe soon, definitely soon, this will be crackling away in my videos. All right, see you then.